Oh, well, ladies and gentlemen, just waiting for a couple of people to join the live. Um, yep, waiting for a couple of people to join the live. As it still loads, waiting for a couple of people. How are you guys? Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining the live. We have just started waiting for the number just to grow a little bit. Don't have to log off. Please don't log off. We are going to start chatting very soon. I'm just waiting for a substantial number and then we can kick off our live. Yep. Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you have seen the tariffs that His Excellency President Donald Trump has put on South Africa. Those are much deserved tariffs. Let's just be honest. Let's just be honest. Those are much deserved. South Africa deserves those because we've been such a crappy country, a country that doesn't obey the hand that feeds it. You know, that old saying, you can't bite the hand that feeds you. It really is. It really quite is. And the situation that we have in South Africa is we've had a very arrogant ANC that, for some odd reason, believe that they can go with a begging bowl to the US and, yeah, and still swear at the US and say, you can keep your America and we'll keep our South Africa. Now, the real story is 30% is the tariff that has, or 31% to be exact, is the tariff that was signed, um, well, has been confirmed, right? Now, because we are a BEE nation, we get an extra 10% onto that 31%, therefore shooting up the tariffs against South Africa up to 40 to 41%. Now, some insiders have actually told me that President Cyril Ramaphosa is actually considering um, a way to mitigate this and how to respond to these tariffs. And one of the ways he is considering responding to the tariffs is by increasing tariffs on the US. So basically, we charge the US tariffs. Remember, before we had a duty-free policy because of AGOA. So basically, you could bring your things for free and we could ship our things for free. But it was not really for free for the Americans because the Americans had to deal with BEE. Because BEE in of itself is still a tax, right? Because BE is a tax, and it's a tax that no one actually is speaking about. And it's something that Donald Trump was not going to be fooled by. Because don't forget, Donald Trump is not like the rest of the fools that we have in Parliament, you know, that somehow are just there to sing for their supper. Now, Donald Trump says this is a tax, and we will respond to you accordingly. Therefore, you will get 40%. And I've explained the 40%. 30% is the normal tariff, 10% is for being a BRICS nation. Now, if you continue reading Donald Trump's statement, he states any tariff that you put on the United States of America, we will add onto this number, right? That's what Donald Trump says. He says any percentage of tariff that you put onto the United States, we will add onto what we're already putting on South Africa. So South Africa is at 40%. Now, if Still Ramaphosa continues with this frame of mind that I've been told he is considering, which is looking at putting tariffs on the US to sort of mitigate this in his terms. That means that we will be shooting up these tariffs not from, well, from 40% to perhaps even 50 to 60, depending on how Cyril Ramaphosa responds to this. My advice to Cyril is very simple. Cut BEE. Cut all the racial laws. We live in the 21st century, for God's sake. Majority of the world no longer gives a damn about racism or about race in and of itself. So cut the BEE, cut the red tape, let small businesses operate by themselves. Cut EWC, cut Bella Bill, cut NHI. Allow for freedom because you as a state, you have already failed. It's that simple. Now, I had a discussion with the American charge to South Africa, which is the acting ambassador. I've posted it on my YouTube timeline. You can go to the posts of our channel and you can go and check the discussion I had with the American charge, which is the acting ambassador. And basically, the discussion was to discuss tariffs, to discuss the implications that it has for South Africa, and to work out a way forward for South Africa. Now, in that discussion, I was very frank. I am a patriot, and you will all know that I love South Africa to death. But one thing that I will not stand for is racism. And racism from the ANC government is one thing that I hate the most. And I said it and I made it very clear. I said, punish the ANC, but do not punish South Africans. The unfortunate thing with these tariffs, they punish citrus farmers. And a large amount of citrus farmers happen to be white. So, well, you know, unfortunately, they are being punished, not the ANC. The ANC are the guys that need to be punished, not us, the citizens. We we should learn to differentiate between citizens and the state. And there's a big thing now where I do think the one part where I will actually be having this conversation again when I meet with the US Embassy is to say, let us separate South Africa as the citizens from South Africa ANC because we are too different. The ANC never asked us if we stand with Russia or Ukraine. They just said South Africa stands with Russia, which is a blatant lie because majority of us support Ukraine. So we really need to differentiate because I think the ANC suffer from an identity crisis where they believe that we all are one or we all are somehow communist and we believe that a communist utopia will come to South Africa one day. So the tariffs are in and that is the first action that Donald Trump will be taking is the tariffs. Step number 2 will be to put sanctions. And I'm pushing for that. I am pushing for sanctions on various leaders. That is the conversation that I had with the acting ambassador to the US was to propose sanctions on various leaders, like number 1, Julius Malema, for the evil song called Kill the Boer. I'm proposing sanctions for him. I'm proposing sanctions on multiple ANC leaders because these guys have got no interest in building a united South Africa. The only thing they know is a communist manifesto that is taken from Karl Marx's, Das Kapital book. So we need to hit them hard as the capitalist West, and that is what I had suggested to the US ambassador, acting ambassador rather, is we need to put sanctions against these guys. And we had great conversations with a number of people um, at this. It was actually a US Independent Day event last week where I was. We had amazing conversations. Rion Barnard was there. He's a friend of Donald Trump, a guy that I spoke to on the sidelines. I enjoyed the conversations that we had with Rion. Spoke to Pete Leroux from Sagalika. And one thing is very clear. We will not tolerate the racism. Understand it. We will not tolerate the racism from the ANC government. That we will not tolerate. So we spoke about farming rights, we spoke about EWC, we spoke about NHI, we spoke about Bella Bill. These are issues that affect you. And we made the American government understand, and rather let me make this personal. Let me not include Pete Leroux and the rest in this because that was just a side conversation. But now I'm referring to my conversation with the American Charge. So Pete Leroux was not there. Where I said we need to cancel Bella Bill. Bella Bill has only got one main objective, which is to kill the Afrikaans language, which I am against because Afrikaans is an African language. It's an African language, whether you like it or not. And Afrikaans is actually spoken by more non-white than white people. Panyasali Sufi, he's so well, don't want to swear, but he's so racist, doesn't realize that. So we need to protect minority rights. We need to protect Afrikaans as the language. And I said, this is killing the Afrikaans language. There's a difference between saying, let us not force you to learn Afrikaans, or saying, let us, say, scrap Afrikaans, no more Afrikaans. Because Bella Bill, and I'm going to explain everything to you. So I'm going to explain everything to you from top to bottom. So if you understand Bella Bill within itself, Bella Bill says they are going to look at the majority language that is spoken in the area of that school. Now, I want to highlight what I was saying to the American Charge. So let's take a random suburb. Let's take Hatfield in Pretoria, or Ward 56 in Pretoria. There was a by-election there 2 weeks ago. Majority of the people happened to be students at UP who happened to be Sotho. Now, that does ultimately affect demographics of the area. Even though the people that actually go to the schools, now I'm not talking about the varsity. Remember, the people that go to varsity, who are majority black students, are Sotho. But the people that go to the schools itself, which are the children, happen to be English and Afrikaans, not Sotho. And they are black amongst that happen to be English. Now, these guys, because of the law, the way it is stated, will be forced to learn Sotho, therefore killing Afrikaans as a language. Because there are very few areas where Afrikaans is the majority language, especially outside of colored townships, believe it or not. Because, well, black people who aren't naturally Afrikaans have now moved into suburbs, which is a cool thing, urbanization, 100%. But that obviously does tilt the numbers now, because that means that you no longer have a situation where, according to this law, where Afrikaans is still the majority. So that's how I explained the Bella Bill to the US acting ambassador. And I explained the dangers of the Bella Bill, because this is basically the ANC killing a culture, killing a language, killing, a way of living before our eyes. And we need to stop it. I highlighted the importance of stopping it, because every single bit of legislation that is coming out of the ANC government is basically meant to make South Africans' lives in South Africa a living hell. So that was my suggestion, that we need to find a way to stop the Bella Bill. And the Bella Bill was recently signed. Therefore, it makes it more difficult to stop, because it's a new act. It's not an old act. And I said we need to find ways to stop the Bella Bill. And one way of doing it is, let's go to Parliament. Number one, let's get to Parliament. I said, unfortunately here, this is a game of numbers. So you need to also have a negotiation with Mkhonto weSizwe, right? And speak to Mkhonto weSizwe about protecting Zulu rights in order for us to protect Afrikaner rights, because Parliament is a game of numbers, unfortunately. The DA, VF Plus, won't have the numbers to carry across or cancel the bill. So it would need other stakeholders outside of the ANC, which unfortunately happen to be Mkhonto weSizwe Party. But we've got an advantage with them because it's a Zulu National Party. That is the advantage. The next conversation happened to be EWC, which was expropriation without compensation. EWC was essentially created by the ANC, and I'm going to explain to you how. So you'll remember that during the golden era of South Africa, Sunnyside, Hillbrow, and all these other communities were a hub for young talent, you know. We had young black and white individuals living in those suburbs like Sunnyside and Hillbrow, making a future for themselves. Now those suburbs have been hijacked by foreign nationals, by brothels, by drug dens, counterfeit goods, and kidnapping stories. I can go on and on and on. Right. Now, you'll remember that during this time, the ANC strategically made policing very weak. And I'm going to give you it's not even a perspective. This is really what happened. Really, really just what happened. The ANC makes policing weak. Now, after making policing weak, you as the owner of this building, back in the days when the suburbs were still shiny, you saw that, okay, now there's an influx of all these bad people coming into our buildings. There's an influx, right? It's happening. You call the police. Police, we are being invaded. They are illegal occupants of my building. Come and assist me. I can't do this by myself, especially when it comes to drug dealers. Now, what happens? The police take forever to respond. You eventually become tired. It's a tedious situation. You leave the building alone. The building becomes dilapidated. It becomes airy, and it just falls into a huge mess. Therefore, it gives a reason for the ANC to create what they call expropriation without compensation, because they created a problem and they already had a solution for the problem that they were going to create in order to not just benefit from the problem, but to also benefit from the solution, which is what they were doing. So um, that is what happened with EWC. Because if you read EWC's laws very carefully, there are 4 points to carrying out EWC. One of the major points says this is done in the public interest, right? Understand it. Public interest of the citizens in that area. Now, what determines the public interest? Really, it's a very fair question. What says that this is in public interest? It's a very fair question. And that is how they are going to seize some of these buildings and run some of these buildings. You will remember that many departments, right? And I'm going to speak under saying the word um, supposedly or apparently. I don't even know, just notice, but I'm going to say it for legal purposes, right? Many departments are working in buildings that are owned by comrades. You should go and check it out. You should go and check it out. Many of those buildings are not actually owned by the state. Many of them are owned by comrades, which is a very, very, very dangerous thing. It's a very dangerous thing. And, no one is talking about it. There's a building in Tshwane called Tshwane House, which is owned, well, from what I've heard, by foreign agents. From what I've heard, by foreign agents. So this is basically, as I'm saying, ANC's way of creating business for themselves. And I said, EWC. It's what I said to the American acting ambassador. I said, we've got to deal with EWC. There are so many laws that were signed between 2024 and 2025, which are so bad. They are so detrimental to South Africans. Not to white South Africans, not to black South Africans. They're detrimental to all South Africans. They really are. Because, well, say bye-bye to land rights. Because, this is how things start. One day, it will start with a building in Sunnyside, and then soon they will come to your house in Waterkloof. Now, another thing that we spoke about also happened to be the ICJ case. The ICJ case is a very sensitive case, but a very important thing to talk about. Because why did we take Israel to the ICJ? You've got to ask yourself the question, why did we take Israel to the ICJ? So, you've heard Rob herself saying that Naledi Pando and her husband, got money from Iran and blah, 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 blah. Now I'm going to share with you something. What I know, and I'm going to say it under what I've heard. I've been hearing from close allies that the Iranian embassy in Pretoria, and I want to say I've heard, so they're accusations to highlight that the Iranian embassy is funding a communist agenda in South Africa. They are not just funding the ANC, they fund Mkhonto weSizwe, they fund the EFF, from what I've heard. I want to highlight from what I've heard. It even goes to an extent where they take the young leaders of these parties, they take them overseas to go to Middle Eastern countries. What do you call it? Sorry, I was just reading one of the comments. They said they take some of these leaders to go to Middle Eastern countries, right? And when they go to these Middle Eastern countries, they're taught about what is it called again? It's a Sharia law, yes. Supposedly they're taught about Sharia law, and I've got a list of the people that actually went on to what supposedly went to these Middle Eastern countries from Mkhonto weSizwe, from the ANC, and from EFF, and these are young leaders. So basically, they are training the next communists to come in future. Hence, this issue will be an ever prevailing issue because it's a pipeline of indoctrination on these poor young souls. So that is what they're doing. They're funding these guys. And then, if you want me to go a step further, I was told, and I want to highlight, I was told from someone deep in Mkhonto weSizwe, um, and I don't want to endanger my life, but I was told that these young guys are being funded, they are being given cars, so they get polos, they get polos, they get apartments, and most of them are residing in Durban, right? So basically, these people are being paid to have this motive or to have this evil agenda, you know? And it's one thing that worried me when I heard this thing that, my gosh, so people are being paid to have this evil agenda. And one thing that you will not know was many years ago, the US Embassy took Julius Malema onto a trip to the US to go and learn about leadership. But unfortunately, Julius did not get what he wanted from the US government, and he got it from the other side, which then tilted him to be who he is today, which is pretty obvious. Now, those are just a few things I think is very important to share with you so that you can understand the battle between communism and capitalism and how deep it runs. Because today we've got institutions that are captured by race, by communists, and what do you call it, such as, well, you could call the University of Witwatersrand. It's full of lecturers that are spewing communism, spewing hatred, spewing all these evil ideas into young South Africans. And you need to go and check, where do they come from? Who was the vice chancellor of Wits? It was Habib. It was a guy whose surname was Habib. And I'm not going to say too much. You will make the conclusion for yourself between this Islamic, crazy support and communism. You will make that conclusion for yourself. You go to UCT. There was a lecturer who actually lectures rather at UCT, who went to University of Limpopo for whatever lecturing, debate, blah, 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 gets there. And he says, understand me, I should actually get the video for you. Someone sent it to me. He says to these poor students, he says to them, a white child and a black child can never coexist in peace. He says it to a classroom full of black students, right? He says they can never coexist in peace, right? Now, after saying that, he mentioned something about black people being superior, white people, blah, 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 being inferior. I won't go into the crux of that. But that garbage that he spread there is the communist agenda that they are having for our kids, and we've got to stop it. Now, I said to the American ambassador, like I said, it's a very long conversation. I said to him, we need to target the universities because that is where communism is spewing from. Communism is spewing right from there, right into other things. Remember, fees must fall was not just about fees. It was about the fact, oh gosh, you white guy, you were so advantaged. That was fees must fall. It was a racist thing, actually. That's what it was. That's what it was. Because somehow communist politicians believe that black people like freebies. So let's make it a freebie thing. Let's tap into your struggle and let us paint white people as wicked. That's what's happening. That is what's happening. And I'm telling you to be careful. Because trust me, ladies and gentlemen, if we do not stop this train of hatred against white people in South Africa, there's only one thing left for South Africa, which is a civil war. And it's going to come. A civil war in South Africa will be started by one of two things. It will either be started by tribalism amongst black people, tribalism, or it will be started by, so one of three things, started by racism, and the third one is going to be due to poverty. That is going to start a civil war in South Africa. And I guarantee you that is going to start it. And Donald Trump knows that this thing that he has actually done to South Africa by putting tariffs is the recipe for that. Because more than 100,000 people in the automotive industry will be without a job because of tariffs. South Africa's GDP is going to lose 1%. Those are the stats. South Africa has lost 5 trillion rand because of BEE. 4 million people have been put out of a job because of BEE. And out of those 4 million people, it has affected more black people than white people. That's what it's done. That is what it has done. But through indoctrination, through hatred for white people, black people are still blinded by the ANC's garbage and the EFF's garbage. That's what it has done. That is what BEE has done to you, my friend. Today, we've got people that go striking instead of working during the week. Today, we've got citrus farmers that will be facing hell to export their goods to America. We've got an automotive sector in East London that is going to die, in Durban that is going to die. Mark my words. We've got a whining sector in the Western Cape and in the Midlands of KZN that is on the verge of death because of BEE. Because of a couple of, just one thing, racial laws. When will the ANC get it through their thick skulls that this does not work, my friends? This does not work. There's a reason why Malaysia, which had its own form of BEE, was not as successful as its brother country Singapore, which just moved on from colonialism. That's all you have to do. Just move on. Let us be. Let us be free. But no, we can't because of the ANC. You know, today, as in today, I was at another by-election, not too far from here, There were a couple of ANC ministers there. They came out of their, their fancy cars, their VIP protection, you know, and I don't give a damn about them. I don't even greet them. I don't, because I don't like greeting crooks. I'm not friends with crooks. I don't respect crooks, nor do I respect racists, nor do I respect hateful people. You can stay there. Don't have to greet me. Whether you're a minister, whether you're a president, I won't come and greet you. I'll watch you pass by. I don't need to greet you. So they recognized me. They said to me, "Aren't you Kuhle, the co-host of State of the Nation with Mike Sham?" I said, "Yes, that's me." "You're right. Right. That's me. How are you?" And they said to me, "You're so articulate. Sing my praises." But I knew they wanted to say something. I said, "What's up? What do you want to talk about?" They said to me, "We don't like the fact that you've got an agenda against the ANC and the fact that you have got this sort of white agenda that you're pushing." So they said to me, "You've got a white agenda that you're pushing." I kept quiet. I said, "Okay, continue, continue. Where are you going?" They said, "We need to regulate podcasting because you guys don't actually care about us. You guys are sort of trying to humiliate us." And I looked at them dead in the eye and I said, "Shouldn't a criminal be humiliated?" That's what I said. A criminal must be humiliated. You cannot congratulate a criminal and say, "Well done. Thank you for stealing. Thank you for ruining 60% of South Africans' livelihoods. The fact that you've got close to 70% of people on SASA. Must I look at you? Must I say, well done, you know what? You are right. Go on. Soldier on with your racist policies. Number one, you've got them." No, I won't. I will not greet you. I will not offer you the respect you believe that you deserve because I'm not your friend. I don't need to be your friend. I don't need your tender contracts. I don't need all of that. I don't. And I told them, I said to them, this space that you are trying to regulate, you know, this space being the podcasting space, right? Because remember, the podcasting space is a very honest space. I'm having with you right now, where I tell you about my conversation with the American ambassador. You will not hear it on SABC. When Courtney Milder came and told us about the four, you know, uh, the four rules or clauses that he came back with from the USA, he said it on a podcast, not on SABC. And mind you, I saw Courtney at the US Independence Day last week. And I might not be part of the VF Plus, but I congratulated him. I said, "Thank you so much for what you're doing." I said to him, I said, "Thank you so much for fighting for South Africa." Because the issue that we have now, and I've mentioned this and I'm going to hammer it over and over again, is we've got a racist, and I'm very sorry to say this, a racist black leadership problem in South Africa. That is what we have. We've got that. We had our hero this past weekend, Senzom Kun. He's a hero. He is a hero. You can't lie. Not Senzom Kun. I'm so sorry. I mean, Mkwanazi. We had our hero Mkwanazi this past weekend. And, Mkwanazi did what South Africans want. They want honesty. Tell us the truth, what's happening. And shameful for Ramaphosa, because he was in Brazil. That's where he was this whole last week and a half. They were there in the BRICS summit, jolling and all sorts. And the thing is, unfortunately for the ANC and these guys, they can't make it like they never knew. They can't make it like they never knew. You cannot make it, especially something this big. You can never make it like, we never knew this was going on. You knew it was going on. How shameful of you. How shameful of you. When I look at these crooks, all these crooks, all of them, the crooks that, Mkwanazi spoke about, the other crooks, can go on, Edwin Sodis of the world, all these other crooks, I look at them, I become so disgusted. I become so disgusted. I said, is South Africa being held back by such illiterate people? South Africa as a country is being held back by people that don't have matrics, let alone varsity qualifications. They don't have matrics. You look at the caliber of these people. You know, they've got money. You know, there's this English saying, well, it's a Zulu saying rather. It says, money cleans people. And you look at these guys, say, money still didn't clean him. Money still didn't clean him. He is still as scruffy, as rough around the edges as can be. And these are the people holding South Africa back. Hmm? Communism does not exist to them, by the way. No, to tenderpreneurs, communism doesn't exist. Doesn't. But it exists for everyone on the ground. It exists for everyone on the ground. And I just said, you know what? I I've had it with these criminals. I've had it with these criminals. I become so disgusted with these criminals. You know, when someone tells me they belong to the ANC, EFF, or MK, I automatically lose respect for them. You know, I just automatically lose respect for them. And now, as well as Action SA, I'm losing respect for them because all of a sudden, it's now fashionable to be racist. It's fashionable to say, oh my gosh, you know, white people must be punished for their forefathers' sins, which is garbage. Which is garbage. It's garbage. And someone must tell them it's garbage. You know, I do a lot of work outside of this podcasting that we're doing now. I had what do you call it? I think it's not a sermon. What's it called? These varsity debates things where I was invited to speak. And I said there, I said, you know, there is no person in South Africa that can rightfully say that South Africa belongs to them in the question of land, you know. I said, do you know that black people, when they got to, you know, the southern tip of Africa being, well, let's say the southern part of Africa being South Africa, because Zulu people or Nguni people are not originally from here. They're from, you know, the Cameroon, Nigeria area. They migrated all the way, same as the Sesotho. I said the only people here were the Sands and the Khoi Sands. Now we still tell white people who more or less came the same way we, you know, the rest of black people came. We tell them that no, no, this is not your country. The bottom line is Jan van Riebeeck came in was 1652 or 1656. I stand to be corrected. That is about 400 years. And you're telling me over all these generations, this is still not their land. It's their land as much as it's your land. It's their land as much as it's your land. So going back, because I digressed, but going back to the essence of the conversation was to explain the conversation with the American acting ambassador, which was we need to sanction individuals in these parties. We need to sanction individuals in these parties. We need to sanction individuals in these parties. And then I will also share another story with you because I like sharing stories with you. I got a call last week. I got a call from someone in Mkhonto Sizwe. And the person in Mkhonto Sizwe called me and said, Kuhle, can you please arrange a meeting, right? With the Mkhonto Sizwe, there's a level of leadership in Mkhonto Sizwe, the regional leadership. Can you arrange a meeting with them and a couple of other people in what do you call it? In the Democratic Alliance, right? They said we want to propose a coalition, right? Or a workable solution for both sides next year. I said, I'm listening to this, you know? I'm listening. I said, okay. I said, I respond to this guy. Mind you, it's a local level thing, you know? I said to him, understand one thing. We are not going to work with crooks. We are not going to work with crooks. You know, because, and this is the essence of the conversation, I'll be very honest with you. the person says to me, we have spoken to the EFF, they are game, and they said, now we just need you guys, but we want to kick out ANC and Action SA. They must go. That's what the person says to me. Mind you, I've not even spoken to my leadership about this. So if they're watching the video, it's the first time they'll see it themselves or hear it themselves. And then I said, okay. And then they said to me, we'll give you guys the mayorship. I said, to hell. And they said to me, they want utilities. I'm going to explain to you what is utilities. Utilities is the department in a municipality where you pay your rates and taxes, right? Your rates and taxes. And then I said to them, to hell, go to hell. I literally said, go to hell. Because I'm like, basically, you want to steal. That's what you want to do. You want to steal. That's why you want to run utilities. Because that's where majority of municipal money is outside of the National Treasury funding. That's what you guys want to do. You think we're that foolish. You guys want to steal. You don't stop with your stealing. They are, there's a pathological liar. And then there's a kleptomaniac, someone that just steals even though they don't need to steal. I don't know what's the word for ANC and MK. I don't know. They've got their own category. They just want to steal. They want to keep on feeding away from the trough, at the trough. Just eat, 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 eat. They never get full. I'm listening to this. In my mind, I'm like, my gosh, I'm shocked as ever. I kid you not. I'm shocked as ever. And one of the surprising things now, I'm going to also use an apparently here because legal reasons again. Now, apparently, there's an MMC a few years ago from the ANC who, you know, had money in every single item of clothing they wore. That is how much they stole. That is how much they stole. So we've got an issue with that. Now, let me just look at the comments quickly because someone says to me, I'm not looking at the comments. So let's look at the comments quickly. And let me answer the comments for you. Um, okay, let's just see. Yes, so you're saying there's no news. So iMovement is saying there's no news on how the BRICS summit in Brazil went. Well, remember the BRICS summit in Brazil was an affirmation. It was like a reaffirming your commitment to BRICS. That's what it was actually. It was not an investment summit. It was not we're going to build a bridge from don't know from over the don't know Crocodile River. It was nothing about that. So it was a reaffirmation or reconfirming that we are committed to BRICS. That's what it was. It was a waste of taxpayers' money to just confirm that we're just committed to BRICS. And then Marius van Heerden says, I agree with sanctioning of all ANC leaders. SA people must not be affected. Yes, that is what I said to the American ambassador. That is exactly what I said. I said, we cannot hurt South Africans. South Africans are already up to here as we speak. South Africans are up to here. They're at the ceiling. We cannot cross the ceiling. If you've got 70%, close to 70% of people on SASA or SASA recipients, that is a very dangerous thing. We've got universities with NSFA students that are close to well, some universities have got a population of NSFA students that reach 70 odd something percent, which is very dangerous. Which means that in actual fact, there are very few people that can fund NSFAs from the wallet. There are very few people that can do that, right? And then you'll remember Bidvest Waltons, if I'm not mistaken, released, now that we're speaking about NSFAs, released what do you call it, is an advert for a bursary program, and it might be Bidvest, I might be wrong, but I think it's Bidvest Waltons. Released advert for a bursary program for their employees. We need to highlight for their employees, which basically said that what do you call it? It says that the bursary program is only for Black, colored and Indian people. So basically only for previously disadvantaged people. That's what it says. And basically white people cannot apply. That's the short and long of it. That's the short and long of it. Which was a very disgusting thing. That was actually brought to my attention. Someone sent it to me in the email, on my email rather. I don't know if I can share it on my screen, but yeah, someone says this is the bursary program and highlighted a couple of things. Now, this thing is very shocking to me who sits in this chair. And I've got to ask the question, I say, but why are you excluding white people? Aren't they earning the same salary as the black people who supposedly cannot afford the tuition fees? Does that make sense? Like, does it make sense? No, I'm asking a very fair question. If if Marius van Heerden, I'm referring to you, my friend, you earn 12,000 and I, Kuhle Maseko, earn 12,000. Whether I lived during apartheid or not, the bottom line is we both can't pay for varsity fees. We both can't pay for tuition. That's just the bottom line. Whether I'm previously disadvantaged, whether you're previously disadvantaged, we just can't. Right. So why does it only apply to, why doesn't it apply to a certain sector in society? It's a fair question. Why doesn't it? It's just outright racism. That's what it is. It's what it is. And those are the things that are killing South Africa. Those are the things that big business loves. Those are the things that are killing small businesses. It's the red tape. That's what's killing small business. And someone asks me, am I a Zionist? Yes, I am, believe it or not. I am a Zionist, a proud one. Thank you so much. Shalom, my friend. And then someone says, oh, I do read the comments. I'm reading them as we speak. Someone says, oh, okay. Someone says, hey, I do respond to your comments, Marius. I'm sure you've seen. And yeah, I will go back to the comments right now. So basically, we need to understand that our country is hanging on a thread. What Trump has done, it's actually, I would call it a brave act. It's a brave act. It's a huge brave act because no one was able to do it. He's doing it. And I can tell you, wherever Ramaphosa is, I'm sorry to say this word, and I'm going to swear this one time, he is shitting his pants. Because he is. He is. I mean, I would be if I was him. I would be. Because you sort of feel like, well, there's no option, you know? You sort of feel like, oh, well, what can we do now? You know? Because trust me, the SASA recipient list is still going to grow because of these tariffs that have been put on South Africa. Those recipient lists are still going to grow. And Jan Viljoen says Frelimo is still in power 50 years later. You know, the ANC, they will stay in power much longer. Yes, it's heading to a very serious poverty and tribal war. Okay, yeah, Frelimo from Mozambique, yes, they are still in power even after 50 years. And you know, the unfortunate thing is, Frelimo, ANC, Zwapu, or Swapu rather, not Zwapu, Swapu, ZANU PF, all these old racist towns still have their own congresses, right? Their own little get-togethers, right? Where they discuss liberation stuff. And I'm not joking. It's not that I'm making it up. It's a real thing. Where they discuss liberation movements and discuss what's the next communist idea that we're going to introduce to our nations and how can we protect each other. It's literally what goes on between these guys. So, um, yeah, well, all I'll say is that I think the people of Mozambique, you know, they really need to. I think it's a Daniel Chapo, the guy that ran against no, so it's Mondlane, the guy that ran against Daniel Chapo, because Daniel Chapo was the president, right? Yeah, Mondlane ran against Daniel Chapo. Mondlane failed the people. I mean, they had an uprising because of him, and then he stopped halfway after he was offered a ministerial post. I mean, the people of Mozambique were ready to kill out or to kick out Frelimo. And that stopped because, well, you know, somehow some people are benefiting from these things. So And that's politics in Southern Africa. It's the same with Patricia de Lille. You know, if you watch my good friend Mike Sham on the political inside or state of the nation, he did a video on on Patricia de Lille and a little scandal that is going on in the Department of Tourism, which has to do with a 100 million rand tender, right? So, and how it was given to some associate and all sorts. It goes on and on and on and on. That's the bottom line in African politics. It's full of people singing for their stomachs. But I'll let you know of one good thing that is happening and one very exciting thing that is going to happen right now. So there is a bill that is coming before Parliament that is being tabled by the Democratic Alliance, which has to do with a threshold for political parties. I believe the threshold is going to be about 2%. So it says that if you are a party and you get less than 2%, you basically lose your seats to one of the bigger parties. So therefore, it's killing this one seat party problem that we have in South Africa, such as the Al Jamaas, the PACs, and the good parties of this world, which are just, in essence, just racist, anti-Semitic, spewing parties that somehow live in some USSR era. So, yeah, the threshold is coming, and I can't wait for that. Still to be seen if the ANC will support the threshold. We'll still see if that's going to happen. Hopefully, they do support the threshold, as well as, yeah. I see someone says in the comments, ANC will destroy everything. They will, or they did not build. Oh, they did not build. Yeah, that is true. That is very true. That is so true. You know, they are masters at changing names. That's what they are. They want to change South Africa's name to Azania. I'm sure you heard. Just, you can't make this stuff up. You really can't. I mean, you just can't. It's the ANC for you. It's not me. It's the ANC. And then you've got UJ, University of Johannesburg, which was Rand Afrikaans, or which was RAU, sorry, so it was Rand Afrikaans Universiteit. You know, it was RAU before UJ, okay? And they changed to UJ. And you've got the same as UWC, same as UKZN, which was University van Natal, to UKZN, same as DUT, ML Sultan Tech to DUT. Yeah, just masters are changing names. You know, Nelspruit to Mbombela, Pretoria to Tshwane. Thank God they've not changed Cape Town. Just professionals are changing names. That's the ANC for you. They are good at that. Changed William Nicole Drive in Johannesburg to Winnie Mandela Drive. Don't know if it brought any more investment. I don't know if it made black people feel any more black. Maybe it did. Maybe I'm just the awkward one. You never know. You ask yourself, why are you changing names? I mean, I don't need a name change. It's not as if it's going to benefit me in any way. They want to change Lanseria, the airport in Johannesburg, in the west of Johannesburg. They want to change the name of the airport and make it some struggle stalwart name. That's ANC for you. That is ANC for you. Just gets ridiculous. You can't make these things up. That's them for you. It's just stupidity after stupidity. That's about it. So someone better tell the ANC, please stop building things and stop changing names. We are tired of it because they wanted to change Santon Drive to Leila Khalid. Remember that story? Which was one of the first instances of flirting with sanctions with the US. The US even threatened to close down the consulate office in Johannesburg. Mind you, the the Durban consulate office, which was a conversation I also had with the acting ambassador, the Durban consulate office is at a risk of closure. It's one of those that are going to put on the list to be looked when, because now remember the US government is looking to downsize because of Doge and all these other issues. So one of the consulates on there, or one of the proposed consulates, will be the Durban one. You're hearing it here. You're hearing it here. And then what do you call it? The Johannesburg one nearly went because of that Leila Khalid. And yeah, Marius van Heerden, Azania hysterical. Yeah, imagine telling people I'm a Zanian, I'm not South African, I'm a Zanian. Sounds exotic. You know, imagine the Rugby World Cup trophy. Huh? How are we gonna change? Because you know they have to engrave South Africa into the Rugby World Cup trophy. You know, and someone says Saltec and academia have been blessed by Jesus Christ, so no opposition needs to apply. Oh yes, that is very true. So Saltec, it's the Afrikaans university built by AfriForum, yes, built by AfriForum, and yes, in academia. Well done, well done. Built by and cost 200 million. The national dialogue cost 700 million. As Katlego from Citizen Concern said, she's so right. We could build 3 universities with that amount. We could build 3. But here we are building nothing because it's fashionable to change names. That's what it is. You know, we just love changing names. Um, you know, Maria says Lanceria is a privately owned airport. True, it is, but they've already spoken to the management. I've heard this from, you know, the most honest politician being Dada Morero because, you know, he promised that he was never going to do anything. That's what he said. He just promised that, you know what, don't expect much from me. That's why he's the most honest politician. We love him for that. So they've spoken to management and they said, yep, the names are um, changing. And then Voidy says Rhodesia became Zimbabwe before it crashed. True, same as South Africa. No, it just feels like we're going there. You know, it feels like us changing South Africa's name to Azania is the last thing you need before the real crash. Like it feels like now, like that is like the last step before hyperinflation. Like it's like just do it and boom, we're in shatters. Now, yeah, you're telling the truth, Jan Falyun. Yeah, the post man only knocks once a new film. So it's bad times in South Africa, ladies and gentlemen. It's a lot of bad times in South Africa. Um, and well, we're here to watch it, and we'll see what goes on. We'll have to see what goes on, and you know, like I said, I'm pushing for these sanctions on these various leaders. Um, and that is what I'm pushing for. Is I'm pushing for sanctions on these various leaders, and I think that's what's needed because that's my conversation with the American ambassador. That's what we need. It's the one simple thing, and we need to reverse all these racist legislations that have gone on and on and on and on. As well as, ladies and gentlemen, while we're still talking, I'd like to just give a special shout out to some of my super fans. There's another super fan of mine called Nikki Gibbs. She is a platinum subscriber or member, rather, as well as she is a regular contributor to the platform, which is a hugely, you know, what do you call it, appreciated thing. There's also another gentleman called Brendan, also Black South African. I see you. Thank you for the 35 Rand. It's really appreciated. It really does help in making these videos because, you know, like I said, my days have started to become very busy, right? Lately, especially with the new thing that I'm doing. My days have become very busy with the activism that I'm doing and the conversations that I'm having with stakeholders. It really keeps me on my feet. So to make these videos are really a tedious effort because my gosh, it takes a lot to light a camera, to edit, to do all sorts. So any form of donation really assists, as well as assists in making the production a bit better. As you can see, we've got a new and better webcam. It's pretty obvious, you know. You can see me clearly now, which is where your support goes to. It's in improving production and assisting the work that we do. Um, so, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say thank you so much for joining the live. It's really appreciated. Continue to show love, continue to show support. We will do these lives more often now that my channel allows me to do lives again. And I just want to say a special thanks to all of you, to Jan Viljoen, to Marius van Heeren, to all the other commentators, Anonymous, Voidy,